Chalk up another victory for former UNLV basketball coach Jerry Tarkanian. After a bitter departure, Tark is being welcomed back to the Shark Tank. We'll ask Jerry Tarkanian about that, his career, and his new book next on Face to Face. Welcome to Face to Face. I'm Jon Ralston. Few people personify Las Vegas sports more than former UNLV Runnin' Rebels coach Jerry Tarkanian. He led UNLV to its first and only national title in 1990, defeating the hated Duke Blue Devils in the most lopsided game in NCAA championship history. But the program Tark built became tarnished by a slew of NCAA violations and an all-too-public feud between Tarkanian and then UNLV president Robert Maxson. That led to Tark's forced resignation in 1992. UNLV basketball has never been the same. To this day, Tarkanian denies any wrongdoing, and he's got a new book detailing his tumultuous career. It's called Jerry Tarkanian, Runnin' Rebel. Here to talk about the book and the upcoming dedication of UNLV's basketball court, Jerry Tarkanian. Welcome to the program, Coach.
Thank you, John.
Let's talk this book. I mean, this is really something in the sense that you are unrepentant about certain things, but you also very frankly admit mistakes you made in your career. Why did you decide to write this book? Was it because you were misunderstood? There were things you wanted to get off your chest? Why?
Well, what happened is when I left UNLV, I was hit by maybe 10 or 15 writers and publishers that wanted to do a book, and I didn't want to do one at that time. I said, no, I'm done. I don't want to do that. But after I finished at Fresno, I was here in town, and the publishers from Champaign, Illinois flew out and took my wife and Danny and myself to Piero's to dinner. And they said that they wanted to do a book, and I got kind of excited then because I was done coaching, and I said, you know, give me a chance to really say everything. And but I insisted that I get to pick a writer. And I picked a great writer. Dan Wetzel's a great, great writer. I didn't even know him. I've read some of his stuff before, but I knew he did Don Haskins' book, and he's a great, great writer.
When you started thinking about writing this, were there stuff that you thought to yourself, you know what, I can't put this in, it's too controversial, there's stuff I need to leave out? Is there great stuff that we didn't read about in this book? Well,
you know what I did is I never want to hurt anybody. The only ones that I'm really bitter at are athletic directors. Like I'm not bitter at the president, Maxson, you know, because he was a president. He did what he thought he had to do, and I totally disagree with him. But I'm not bitter. I'm bitter at an athletic director who I'm working for, who should be loyal to me because I'm loyal to them. And for no reason, absolutely no reason at all, except that they want to get a promotion or something, that they'll turn on you. And
that wasn't just at UNLV either.
The only ones I've ever really ripped are the two athletic directors that did that. But I was fortunate. I had the greatest athletic director you could ever have here at UNLV in Brad Rothermel, and I had a great one at Long Beach State in Dr. Fred Miller. So, you know, I've been blessed, and then of course I had the two worst ones in Dennis Finfrock and Scott Johnson.
You know what some people are saying, Coach, who've been around a long time. They're saying the reason that he loved Rothermel is Rothermel let him do whatever the hell he wanted. It's when people started to crack down on Tark, that's when he didn't like him.
That's not true at all. Rothermel, you know, whenever you went to see Rothermel, his first thing was, let's see if we can make this work. If he couldn't make it work, that was it. I mean, when Brad was the athletic director, the UNLV was winning in almost every sport. The department had all-time high morale. I mean, everything was going. We were making over $5 million a year. Everything was going positive. It's when they got rid of Brad that things turned haywire. But Brad was a strong athletic director, very strong.
And what about when you look back on your career at UNLV? You said the only people you're bitter at really are the athletic directors. Did it take you a long time though after you left, after the resignation, to really get rid of that bitterness toward the whole experience?
Well, you know, I wouldn't go to a game until Maxson and Book and Finfrock were out. But once they went out, I love UNLV. I've always been a UNLV guy. I couldn't have been any happier when I coached there. I love the people. I love the other coaches. You know, I have great relationship with all the other coaches on the staff, and but you know, I felt, and in your opening statement, like you said, that because of NC2A violations, but what people aren't aware of, that's what they kept insinuating. But after 7 years of the most intense investigation, and I said it from day one, if they find one major violation against me or our staff, we will resign. They never once, and the NC2A had to admit this.
And they paid you a lot of money.
Well, they had to admit there was not one major violation, yet the media and leaks from the NC2A make you think there was all kinds of violations. The worst part is a lot of that was coming from our attorney, Brad Book, who to me was probably the most dishonest attorney I'd ever met in my life.
You know, you're
and,
very...
and those are things that are hard for me to understand, is how people can do those things in that kind of a position. And there was a bitterness, there's no question about it. You're wondering why, you know, because I felt we built the best basketball program in the country. Our last 10 years, we averaged 31 wins and 4 losses. We did it without violating NC2A rules.
You know, I got to cut you off here, Coach, because we got to take a break. But when we come back, you know, you're very candid about your feelings about the NCAA in this book.
Right.
I want to talk about that. And later, we'll talk to Tark about what it means to him to have that court dedicated to him. It's coming later this month.
Watching Face to Face with Jon Ralston.
Welcome back to Face to Face. I'm Jon Ralston. Our special guest today is Jerry Tarkanian, the legendary coach of the UNLV Runnin' Rebels. He's going to have a court dedicated in his honor later this month. You know, it's interesting. You have some really telling vignettes in this book going way back. You talk about losing, when you were at Long Beach, losing this kid to USC, and you make the implication that maybe payoffs had something to do with it. He got a nicer place than you could have offered him. Is that the moment that you changed in your attitude about college coaching right then?
Well, no, I mean, I was very realistic. You know, that kind of stuff was going on. And I never came out and accused SC. I just told what happened. Because I love
But the clear implication was that...
because it did happen.
Yeah.
You know, it did happen, and I never even mentioned the name because I love SC. I have never in my career have ever turned anybody in for a violation. I've never ratted on another coach. I've never reported a violation. The things that bother me is when the NC2A would let certain schools get away with it, and they would jump all over me.
You say a lot of things about the NCAA. Let's go through some of the things you say in the book. I want to read for the viewers. In major college basketball, 9 out of 10 teams break the rules. The other one is in last place. Actually, the way the NCAA rules are written, 99% of the schools cheat. But that is because what is humanistic to some is cheating to the NCAA. Coach takes a player to lunch and it's cheating. If a kid is having some personal issues and he comes to your home to discuss it and you say you need to call your mother, here is the phone, that call is cheating. I don't think that's cheating. That's just being humanistic. And let me play devil's advocate here. Some people are saying, you know, of course, some of those NCAA rules, they're just, you know, they're ticky-tack, they're crazy, they're just going to do anything to get you, especially if they have an agenda to get you. On the other hand, there's some real serious violations that you and other coaches have been accused of. This is what I'm insinuating, what you insinuated about USC, giving money, getting cars, houses, condos, that kind of stuff.
I never said that about SC.
No, I know. I'm not saying you did.
No, but I agree that when I said 99%, what I'm referring is there's one rule that's called the extra benefit rule. That rule can be interpreted in any way the NC2A wants, and that's what bothers me. UCLA has given cars to players, and the LA Times has reported it. The NC2A barely does anything to them. If we were to buy a kid a milkshake, they'd come in. They come in and send me to Devil's Island.
Is that because you fought them? You think that's what you were willing to do what other coaches don't do when you were stepped up and attacked them after you thought they were going after you? You think that's why they kept going after you?
Well, that's why they kept going after me, because they never got me. That's the NC2A. If you look back, every coach that's ever fought them got buried within probably months. They're usually fired. I'm the only. Excuse me. Excuse me.
Sure.
I think Dale Brown from LSU and myself are the only 2 coaches that have ever fought him that was still standing. And I'm always grateful to UNLV because At that time, UNLV stood by me, but what the UNLV did when these allegations came out is they had the Attorney General of the state of Nevada investigated. And they brought everybody in and got affidavits and sworn statements, and there was not a major violation. So they stood by me, which was the right thing to do.
Did you regret it? I mean, some people have told me over the years that it was really your wife, Lois, who's now on the city council, some people may not know, who really pushed you to fight them and said, you just can't roll over, Jerry, you got to go after him. Did you want to at some point just say, want to keep your mouth shut and go on with your life?
Well, the first thing that happened was at Long Beach, and I was here, I just came here, and the charges they made were so ridiculous. And at the time, Lois and I flew in to Long Beach. We had a press conference, and we refuted the charges. And that's when I was told that that's when they're going to bury you. They say that when they come after you, you thank them, you say what great guys they are, and you let them hit you over the head with a hammer, and you thank them for it. And then they go away. They told me that. I was told that by two of the top coaches, guy in New Mexico State and Hugh Durham, and I can't even think New Mexico State coach now. They both told me, Tark, don't fight him, just call him.
It wasn't Ellenberger, was it?
No, New Mexico State.
Not New Mexico, okay. All right, well, I don't want to do coach trivia with you. We don't have time.
Lou Henson.
Lou Henson, that's right. Okay, when we come back, I do want to talk about a little bit more about what you had to say about the NCAA and how you're not going to apologize for some of the things you did to bring kids into UNLV. Back with Coach Jerry Tarkanian when Face to Face returns. Welcome back to Face to Face. I'm Jon Ralston. We're joined today by legendary UNLV running rebel coach Jerry Tarkanian. He has a new book. It's called Jerry Tarkanian, Running Rebel, and we're talking to him about that book and his career. He's going to have the court at the Thomas & Mack dedicated in his honor later this month. All right, let's talk a little bit more about the NCAA. You say it's biased when it comes to who they go after. You said they can say what they want, but the NCAA will not investigate or punish the big schools like they investigate the small schools. They won't, they never have, and they never will. And I've been right about that from day one. You're saying that they care too much about the TV money that those big schools bring in? Is that what it is?
Well, certain schools. I shouldn't like certain of the big schools they have gone after, which amazes me, but there are certain programs that have just gotten away with everything, and they never will touch them, and they do bury the little schools. I mean, just look at, they investigate Ohio State. And everybody that knows anything about sports, they find 8 violations on basketball and 1 on football.
Right, and what's the big sport at Ohio State?
I mean, how can anybody possibly...
But what do you think that you suffered? Let me ask you 2 questions. Do you think you suffered through the years because of the image of Las Vegas itself being Sin City? And, listen, you do admit some mistakes in the book, Coach. You admit mistake recruiting Lloyd Daniels. You admit some other mistakes. You're not saying that you didn't maybe violate some of these rules. You're saying you were treated differently. Isn't that correct?
We never violated a major rule. That's the thing that we never bought a player here, never. Every player in our program will tell you that. But you know, certainly the minor rules. There's so many of them there that are unrealistic, and you can't live with those rules.
What about Sin City? Do you think that hurt you?
Yeah, I think I don't think the NCAA wanted Las Vegas to be a national championship city, particularly in those days. I think now the image of the city is
more accepted,
changed, but. I think that probably hurt some too. I don't think that anybody expected UNLV ever to get to #1, but we had it to a point where we had the greatest fans, we had great players. I had the greatest coaching staff. We had a great athletic director. We had everything that it took.
But they still went after you, and you know, one of the reasons I think they went after you too is they thought that, you know what, Tark brings in these thugs. That's how they thought of you. And let me show you what you said. You know they said that. You said, here's what you said about the criticism leveled against you for the players you recruited. I won't apologize for all the players I brought into college that other schools wouldn't. I won't apologize because some of them never graduated or never got serious about school. I tried. I took a lot of criticism for that, but if you ever came to a reunion like the Riverside one, you would see that those are great stories, kids who make you proud of them, and so on. Coach, do you regret bringing in some of those kids? Do you really believe that you don't have to apologize for any of them?
Well, you know, in life, if you deal with inner city kids, minority kids, and I read this someplace, if you're successful 30 or 40% of the time, they say you're doing pretty good. I was successful probably 90% of the time with the kids we brought in. Some of the kids we brought in did absolutely great. But the thing is, the media's jumped on the 10% that didn't do great. I think what we accomplished was incredible, and a great deal of that credit goes to Lois because she started the academic stuff. You know, I know when we were having the problem, the University Maxim came out, it was academics versus athletics. That was totally false because at the end, when the statistics came out, we graduated 48% of our basketball players. The university graduated 22% of their student body.
Well, you know, you look though.
So, you know, no one did more for academics than we did.
And your wife was on the school board and cares a lot about education. People know that. But let me show you what you said about UNLV's entrance requirements when you first got here. You said they wouldn't be eligible to play right away, meaning the players, but they would be admitted as full-time students, and then you'd go from there. That was a big advantage because we could get in on some recruits who were poor high school students, get them into a JUCO, a junior college in California for 6 credits, and then bring them to UNLV. We could recruit kids other schools couldn't. Or maybe, let me just play devil's advocate, or maybe shouldn't have. Maybe those kids shouldn't have been recruited to go to college.
The kids that we had here are the same kids that went to Louisville, Cincinnati, 70% of the schools. Certainly we didn't have kids that could have gone to Duke or Stanford or anything like that. Our kids were the exact same that Louisville, Cincinnati, or any of those other schools like that had.
Were they looked at differently because they were your kids?
Well, you know, and when I say that we could get them in school, you know, we could get them in at that time if they had a C average out of high school. In fact, our university turned down Sean Kemp because he had a 1.97. I mean, UNLV was a great university, and they stood to the standard, which was you had to have a 2.0. But we didn't get in anybody in school here that Louisville couldn't have got in, that Cincinnati couldn't have got in, University of Georgia, the Southeastern Conference, any of those, most of those schools. We were no different than most of those schools.
When we come back, Coach, for the final segment, I do want to talk about this court being dedicated in your honor, if you ever thought that would happen and what it truly means to you. Back with Coach Jerry Tarkanian when Face to Face returns.
Face to Face with Jon Ralston.
Welcome back to the program. Legendary UNLV Running Rebel coach Jerry Tarkanian is joining us today. He's talking about his new book, Running Rebel, and he's going to have the court dedicated in his honor. It's been a long time coming. Thomas and Mack later this month. You did leave here under very bitter circumstances. You were bitter about it. There were 3-year players in the hot tub with a known gambler, etc. It was a terrible time for you. Now you hope all that bitterness has been erased. Carol Harder, the current president of UNLV, had this to say about this. You always have to put things in the perspective of history. 10, 12 years after Coach Tarkanian left the university, his basketball legacy lives on. We're trying to recapture some of that legacy with Lon Kruger. That's the coach now, if people don't know. And sometimes you have to wait. I make a lot of decisions that have complex issues, but it's the right time to do it. That must have made you feel good.
No, I was real happy. I know Mike, the athletic director, Mike Hamrick, worked hard on this, and I appreciate Carol Harder's support. And you know, it's very nice. You know, I have 4 kids who live here in town, and I have 10 grandkids. So, you know, obviously it's going to be nice for them too to have the legacy of the court being named after me.
I bet in 1992, 1993, maybe even years after that, you never thought this day would come.
You know, I never thought about that. I never did. I've always loved UNLV. I mean, I've always, you know, the impact that UNLV had around the country is amazing. Even to this day, wherever I go, people still talk about the great UNLV teams and how popular we were. You know, it was just incredible.
It was amazing. When I first came to town, I actually, to be honest with you, I went back in the 70s when I first started following college. I loved the Rebels. I mean, you guys were a pro team almost, and I don't mean that in a pejorative way. I mean, you guys scored 110 points a game. They're the most exciting college basketball teams probably in history. I think I was disappointed when you didn't win the national championship back then. But then I came here to live, and it was all about the school. I mean, that is what put UNLV on the map, was the basketball program, and that eventually was used against you, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, and it was really unfortunate because what it was is they started off with all a bunch of lies. You could have had a better program than we had. We had the greatest group of kids you could ever have. In fact, we had 2 kids signed with us the next year that visited Stanford. Can you imagine how far UNLV came when you got 2 players signed with you that visited Stanford? And, you know, you could talk about academics, but that's the first time ever, I think, that UNLV's ever competed with Stanford for an athlete. And everything was going great. I had a great coaching staff. We had the greatest fans. We were on television every game. The whole country loved us. In fact, our apparel was the highest in the country, ahead of Notre Dame's.
You know, I want to invoke another famous Las Vegas personality, though, Andre Agassi, those commercials that said, image is everything. That's what it was for you, though. That's what it became, though, isn't it? Isn't that what really happened, Coach? Your image was seen finally as a liability for the university as it was trying to become something else. That's what you were the victim of.
Well, they created the image. I mean, the university played a big part in it. They made so much of that hot tub issue, and to this day, those kids swear that that picture was taken before they even knew who Sam Perry was Richard Perry.
But you know that was a serious issue. You're not denying
Well, it's not a serious issue if they didn't know who he was. I mean, he coached Moses Scurry in high school, coached his AAU team, and you know, that's a perfectly normal thing. The problem is once they realized he was involved in fixing games, well, then it became a very serious issue. And no one knows when that picture was taken, but those kids swear. Moses swears to this day that was taken before they ever knew who he was. And you know, like Moses said, those kids, he coached them since he was in the 8th grade. It was a perfectly normal thing for an AAU coach to come out to Nevada and retire, and all of a sudden he's taking the kid to lunch and stuff like that.
And that was the end for you, right?
Because of the way it was perceived.
There was on the front page of the news. Exactly. Coach, we're out of time. It's been a pleasure to have you on. Good luck with the book, and congratulations on the court being dedicated. Good luck with that.
Great. It's a great book. I really enjoyed it myself.
Well, thanks for coming on the program.
Great. Thank you, John.
All right. If you want to contact me, you can email me at ralston@vegas.com or call me 650-1976. You can also click on the face-to-face link at lasvegassun.com for the latest schedule updates, or on the face-to-face link at klastv.com. Catch the program in streaming video on the web. Or you can stay up to the minute with everything I do, my email newsletter, my columns in the Sun and in Business, by clicking on ralstonflash.com. On the next Face-to-Face, more of the issues that matter to you from people in the know, only on Las Vegas 1.